Okay, we're going to go read now. We're going to get the Heart of the Lotus Sutra by Daisaku Ikeda. We're going to go to chapter 2. Chapter 2 starts on page 37. We got about 20 pages to read tonight to get through chapter 2, so I'm going to get right into it. Everybody ready?
Yes.
All right. Shoi shaga butsuzo shingon yakusenman nokomushu sho butsu jingyo sho butsu muryo doho yumyo sho jinmyo sho fuman joju jinjin mizo uho zuigi sho setsu ishu nange. Translates from Sanskrit too. What is the reason for this? The Buddhas have personally attended 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million, a countless number of Buddhas, and have fully carried out an immeasurable number of Buddha's ways and doctrines. They have exerted themselves bravely and vigorously, and their names are universally known. They have realized the law that is profound and never known before, and preach it in accordance with what is appropriate. Yet their intentions are difficult to understand. Okay, in this passage, starting again on page 37, in this passage, Shakyamuni explains why the wisdom of the Buddhas is infinitely profound and immeasurable, and why it is difficult to understand by indicating the practices he and other Buddhas have carried out in previous lifetimes. To convey a sense of just how difficult is the path to attaining Buddhahood, Shakyamuni explains that Buddhas have served countless other Buddhas in previous lifetimes, have bravely and vigorously carried out incalculable practices, and as a result have become enlightened to a law of unparalleled greatness. Now that's Shakyamuni's teaching. All right? The practice of Shariputra and other people of the two vehicles, continuing on page 38, is quite shallow in comparison. Accordingly, they cannot comprehend the true purpose of the teaching Shakyamuni is expounding. Comprehension, courage, and action are born of heartfelt agreement. It is interesting how Shakyamuni mentions his practice in previous lifetimes to indicate that the wisdom of the Buddhas is infinitely profound and immeasurable. Since the wisdom he attained cannot itself be easily articulated, he explains it by describing the practices that became the cause for that enlightenment. This method of reasoning may seem obscure to us today, but the people of India commonly understood the idea that one repeatedly undergoes the cycle of birth and death. Therefore, by explaining that he had served countless Buddhas in the past, Shakyamuni could readily win the people's understanding and agreement. Heartfelt agreement is important. When people are satisfied with an explanation, their comprehension deepens and their state of life expands. Hopefully that's what's happening as we read this together. Heartfelt agreement produces courage and hope and is sure to give rise to action because it provides clarity. It inspires your life condition, right? For this reason, dialogue is very important because that's where it's all born from. The power to impart profound understanding and earn others' heartfelt agreement is the power of words and the power of the voice. As a result of Shakyamuni's power of speech, even Shariputra developed a seeking spirit to attain the vast wisdom of the Buddhas, plural. As we've seen, Shakyamuni clarifies that through having carried out immeasurable numbers of practices under a countless number of Buddhas, he has attained the wisdom and enlightened state of life of the Buddha. A Buddha is one who has experienced and carried out all manner of practices in previous lifetimes. In this sense, Buddha means an expert at Buddhist practice. Shakyamuni had the experience and benefit of all the practices he carried out in the past. That's why he could expound teachings that perfectly matched the time and the people's capacity, because please do understand that. What Shakyamuni's teaching is for the time that he's occupying in the former and the middle day. Okay? Right? Okay. A Buddha is one who's, and so again, he's preaching for his disciples' capacity, not yours. You're not a disciple of Shakyamuni. You're a disciple of Nichiren. A Buddha is one whose richness of experience in the past produces a spiritual abundance in the present. True leaders are those who can offer appropriate advice based on their own rich experience, not people who just give orders and are all words and no substance. Leaders are first people of action who lead by personal example. They are not people who merely occupy some status or position. Leaders are people of hard work, not people of tactics and maneuvering. Above all, they are not authoritarians. I'll say that last one again. Above all, they are not authoritarians. Okay? So if you see an authoritarian, they miss the point. They thought leadership is like about being some sort of a dude, rather than being the one that everybody wants to emulate because they're so inspired by who you are, what your life condition is, the sparkle in your eye, the wisdom that comes from your speaking. In any event, the Buddha's life is profound and wondrous. The Buddha's one life contains the benefit of immeasurable practices, all contained in the one. Let me say that again. In any event, the Buddha's life is profound and wondrous. The Buddha's one life contains the benefit of immeasurable practices. All is contained in the one. Why? We've read this a million times. It's all contained in Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. All of the benefits and merits of all the Buddhas, of all the three realms, of all the, 10 directions, yada, 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 yada. It's all contained within the Daimoku. Such is the mystery of life. Nichiren Daishonin expressed the mystic nature of life as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Thus, he writes, the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo, the heart of the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra, contain the benefit amassed through the countless practices and meritorious deeds of all Buddhists throughout the 3 existences. Whoa. Okay, done. Viewed from the perspective of Nichiren Buddhism, therefore, the passage, the Buddhas have personally attended 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million, a countless number of Buddhas and have fully carried out an immeasurable number of Buddha's ways and doctrines, praises the benefit of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. It doesn't talk about an actual circumstance of you going around, because you're the original Buddhas if you're Bodhisattvas of the earth, aren't you? Right? You're the original disciples of the original teacher. So what Buddha's taught you? The original Buddha taught you. That's who you're a disciple of. Do you understand? That Buddha is your teacher. That's what makes you significant as a Bodhisattva of the earth and a true Buddha, rather than, right? Okay, so praises the benefits of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Earnest faith, at the very bottom of page 39, is the path to attaining Buddhahood. Earnest faith. In describing the immeasurable practices he has carried out, Shakyamuni's purpose is not to indicate that others should do the same. Rather, he is saying, in effect, based on your trust in this Buddha, based on your trust in this Buddha, you should put your faith in the teaching that I, Shakyamuni, am about to expound. This is exactly what we do with the Daishonin's teaching. All right? Shakyamuni is a Buddha who in the past carried out immeasurable practices. Such tales as the Boy Snow Mountains and King Shiba describe how brave and vigorous these practices were. In the latter day of the law, there is no need to carry out an immeasurable number of Buddha's ways and doctrines as Shakyamuni did. You've already done it. Embracing and upholding the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo for oneself and for others provides the benefit of carrying out an immeasurable number of Buddha's ways and doctrines. This is not to say, however, that Shakyamuni's practices are irrelevant to us. Throughout Nichiren's writings, he stresses the spirit of Shakyamuni's practice. For example, commenting on the meaning of the Boy Snow Mountains practice, he writes, does everybody know who Snow Mountains?
Yeah.
Okay. That's my favorite dude. That's the one that story showed me how to be a bodhisattva of the earth. As for the matter of becoming a Buddha, ordinary people keep in mind the words earnest resolve and thereby become Buddhas. When we carefully consider what exactly earnest resolve refers to, it is the doctrine of observing the mind, which is chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon. All right? In the latter day of the law, earnest resolve, the will to understand and live up to the law, is the cause for attaining Buddhahood. Now, what did that just say? In the latter day of the law, earnest resolve, the will to understand and live up to the law, is the cause for attaining Buddhahood. Are you not doing exactly that by sitting here every week while we do this every week, trying to encourage everybody that we can, while we expand our own lives? That's exactly what you're doing. You're having the will to understand and live up to the law. And you are attaining Buddhahood as a result of that cause. The cause you make. Okay? Not the gift of someone else. You have to make that effort. You're the one that achieves that state. You and you alone. Nichiren praises most highly those courageous individuals who maintain earnest resolve. For example, Dashijo Kingo, who made the long and difficult journey over mountains and across rivers, and the treacherous sea to visit Nichiren in exile on Sado Island, he writes, "How could your resolve be inferior to the boy who threw away... How could your resolve be inferior to the boy who threw away his body on the snow mountains?" And to the late nun Myoichi, he writes of her deceased husband who had dedicated his life to the mystic law, "He must certainly have received blessings as great as those of the boy snow mountains and the Bodhisattva medicine king." In light of the above, we can say that the earnest resolve of each person who lives based on the mystic law and struggles for Kosen Rufu, which is the attainment of widespread propagation, right? Contains the benefit. Each person contains the benefit of all Buddhist practices and all meritorious deeds. So it's all contained in what you're doing right now. There's nothing more you have to do than what you're doing right now. This is the point. According to this passage, a Buddha has served and practiced under an incalculable number of Buddhas for an unimaginably long time. This practice, continued over many lifetimes, becomes the cause for enlightenment. As a result, the practitioner attains the supreme state of Buddhahood. This is termed countless kalpas of practice. How we should bear in mind, however, that this is only a literal interpretation of the Buddha's causes, practices, and effects, virtues, as described in the Lotus Sutra's theoretical teaching. All right? Because we don't read it based on Shakyamuni, right? Yeah. We read it based on Nichiren. We're attaining Buddhahood in our present form, right? Yeah. So, reading this passage from the standpoint of Nichiren Buddhism, President Toda explained that it is unnecessary for us to engage in such practices for countless kalpas to attain enlightenment. So it's not limited to anybody that's already done this. Anybody can catch up with sincere faith. He said as follows, from the standpoint of the Daishonin's teaching, the Buddha, the Gohonzon of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, you understand that to be the case, right? Okay. The Buddha, the Gohonzon of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, is the fundamental law that gives birth to 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million, to a million Buddhas. It's the fundamental aspect of all things, right? All Buddhas are a thing, right? So all Buddhas are an aspect of the law. Therefore, without undertaking any difficult or painful practices, by simply chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we gain more benefit than we could by personally attending that many Buddhas. The benefit of this single practice is equal to that of the immeasurable number of austerities carried out by all Buddhas. Okay? Because what are all those austerities? They're all freaking expedient means. Okay, right? Because they're not Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's why they're called provisional Buddhas when they teach those practices. Okay, those meritorious deeds, right? So what did he just say there? The benefit of this single practice is equal to that of the immeasurable number of austerities carried out by those Buddhas. Because we're already on the path to enlightenment in our present form. Do you understand? They could never become enlightened in their present form as long as they stayed in that same state. Do you realize that? Do you understand that? We couldn't if it were not for what? It's the latter day of the law. The original teacher has come and expressed the original teaching, and the original disciples have come to spread that teaching. Okay? It's only because of Nichiren and his teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that everything I'm saying can be so. All right? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the fundamental law that gives rise to all Buddhas. All Buddhas. Okay? To put it another way, the fundamental cause that enables all Buddhas to attain enlightenment is not that they have carried out various austerities over countless kalpas. Rather, it's because they have awakened to the fundamental law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and they can only do that by what? Meeting a correct teacher.
Yes.
Only by meeting a correct teacher. The Buddhist practice of the latter day of the law is to embrace and uphold the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo directly. In Nichiren Buddhism, therefore, it is not necessary to engage in austerities. Because those are expedient means. We don't do expedient means. Right? We're true Buddhists. All right? For countless kalpas to attain Buddhahood. This all makes sense, doesn't it? Nichiren Daishonin states in The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind, and this is one of the most cool quotes from that Gosho, Shakyamuni's practices and the virtues he consequently attained, like becoming the Buddha that that was the thus come one of original, okay? Shakyamuni's practices and the virtues he consequently attained are all contained within the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo. If we believe, if we have faith, if we believe in these 5 characters, we will naturally be granted the same benefits he was. No separation. All right? The practices to attain Buddhahood carried out by Shakyamuni and all Buddhists throughout time and space, and the virtues they acquired as a result, are all contained in Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This is the principle that embracing the Gohonzon is in itself observing one's own mind. Okay? Which is what we talked about before, right? Observing the mind is chanting Daimoku to the Gohonzon. Nichiren Daishonin says that for a person who embraces the mystic law, becoming a Buddha is nothing extraordinary. Nichiren's teaching establishes a path leading to Buddhahood for all. Attaining Buddhahood is not something that happens in the distant future or somewhere far away. Nichiren Buddhism makes it possible for all people to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime, regardless of who they are, regardless of where they live, regardless of what their capacity is. It depends on their faith, and it depends on the karmic influence of their fortune to meet a correct teacher. The teaching of embracing the Gohonzon is in itself observing one's own mind, represents a revolutionary view of what it means to attain Buddhahood. President Toda said, that's what Nichiren's talking to when he says it's nothing extraordinary. That's what he's referring to. Who grasped that concept? The Soka Gakkai. We're the ones that talk about we're all Buddhas. Right? We're the ones that encourage one another to bring forth our inherent Buddha nature, to become Buddhas in our present form. We're not taught to wait another lifetime. We're told you better get your shit together and do it now. Right? Yeah. There's a huge difference between us and everybody else as a result. That's what he's talking about. The teaching of embracing the Gohonzon is in itself observing one's own mind as the Buddha. Represents a revolutionary view of what it means to attain Buddhahood. President Toda said, in contrast to the Buddhas of the Expedient Means chapter who have practiced for tens of millions of years, we can complete our practice for attaining Buddhahood by simply believing in the Gohonzon and chanting the single phrase, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Top of page 43. There is immeasurable benefit chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo even just once. Immeasurable means boundless, without limit, without end, correct? Because it lasts forever. Instantaneously, we gain all the benefit of the Buddha's acquired over many lifetimes of practice, and that's to be able to attain Buddhahood as a common mortal. That's not about circumstances or pluses or minuses on our checklist of what we want. This is about attaining Buddhahood. That's the benefit they're speaking of there. Not pleasant circumstances. All right? That's how great the mystic law is. According to the conventional Buddhist view, the process of attaining enlightenment is like climbing a steep mountain path toward the peak of Buddhahood far in the distance. I remember one day we had a meeting and somebody talked about that as like they showed a mountain peak somewhere and they said, that's Buddhahood. And I remember how embarrassed I was to say, no, it's right now. It's not. That's the whole idea. You think it's that mountaintop in the distance. That's the point. You got to remember it's not the mountaintop in the distance. It's this moment.
Right.
According to the conventional Buddhist view, the process of attaining enlightenment is like climbing a steep mountain path toward the peak of Buddhahood far in the distance. By contrast, Nichiren enables all people to reach the summit of enlightenment instantaneously. From the state of Buddhahood, we can gaze down on the surrounding mountains far below and survey the spectacular panorama of nature stretching out in all directions. We can attain this vast state of Buddhahood directly, right now, right where we are. Then we go out into society and tell others of this exhilarating state of life we experience. This practice represents the quintessence of Nichiren Buddhism. Buddhist practice means challenging ourselves daily. This is not something that you can, I got it, and now you're handled. That will never be the case. 45 years later, let me tell you for sure that's not coming. So if you're holding out for that point of development in your life, quit holding your breath. You're going to pass out. Okay?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Very
Truly.
Very
Truly.
true.
Very true.
Yeah, it's very true.
Buddhist practice means, and you know what though? Why can I say that? I can say that only because I got to that point and I kept saying, why is it still so difficult? I was expecting to come to a point where everything...
In harmony.
Yes!
Yes.
Okay?
Of course.
All right? So it's really only through pondering how could this be that I read the teaching enough to be able to convey what I convey when I convey it. Okay? That I am because that's what the teaching actually says. Buddhist practice means challenging ourselves daily. They, talking about the Bodhisattvas, have exerted themselves bravely and vigorously, and their names are universally known. Refers to the practice of the Buddhas of the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings and Lotus Sutra's theoretical teachings. At the same time, it provides an important guideline in faith. First, bravely and vigorously means with faith. That means regardless of what's happening in this moment, you're sure what's going to happen ultimately if you never give up.
Right.
You're never, ever swayed by the circumstance of the moment, no matter how difficult it is, or how unable you are to explain or understand it. Okay? Be assured that you shall be able to explain and understand it. That will be the reward of not giving up. Victory. First, bravely and vigorously means with faith. The 6-volume writings by Nichikan cites the interpretation that bravely means to act with courage, and vigorously means to use every ounce of one's wisdom. Nichikan explains that bravely and vigorously means to courageously exercise one's power of faith to the fullest, which means to never give up and to ultimately achieve one's goal. Attain Buddhahood. Buddhist practice has to be carried out with determination and courage because it's hard. When we challenge ourselves bravely with the spirit to accomplish more today than yesterday and more tomorrow than today, we are truly practicing because we're constantly advancing if that's what we're doing. Right?
Right.
Without such a brave and vigorous spirit, we cannot break the iron shackles of destiny, nor can we defeat obstacles and devils. Our daily prayers are dramas of challenging and creating something new in our lives. When we bravely stand up with faith, the darkness of despair and anxiety vanishes from our hearts, and in pours the light of hope and growth. This spirit to stand up courageously is the spirit of faith. All right, but what did he just say there? I want to say it again. We cannot break the iron shackles of destiny, nor can we defeat the obstacles and devils if we don't have brave and vigorous spirit, a brave and vigorous spirit. All right? Because we're going to be challenged. The other thing, too, is also, though, understand that in that process of those challenges, many people are going to view us and say, if your Buddhism is so great, why are you going through this? Yeah. Why do you have such a difficult life? You know, you may understand it, but they don't. Yeah. That's when you must go to the Gohonzon and express your desire for your life to show them why. Okay? That's how you can make sense of all that. You can utilize that reality and say, can't let me down. Now, I've got to be a living example. Okay? Lock in. That's my function, is to now defeat those devils so that I can show the actual proof that my life was meant to be a canvas for the painting of. Do you understand? Right? Okay. So, the Buddha nature manifests, continuing on page 44, when we practice with sincerity and consistency. Because that's the key. Because in the absence of sincerity, consistency, there's not advance.
Right.
Okay? In the absence of sincerity and consistency, you're not really practicing as a bodhisattva of the earth. Because a bodhisattva of the earth always practices with sincerity and consistency. Okay? So this is the manner in which we can determine whether or not we're making the causes that would justify us having an attitude about whether or not we're getting benefit. If you're not doing the things that get you benefit, you shouldn't be wondering if you're not getting benefit. All right? From the standpoint of Nichiren Buddhism, exert means to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo diligently for the happiness of oneself and others. So what does that mean? What did he just say there? From the standpoint of Nichiren Buddhism, exert means to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, what? For benefit? No. No. From the standpoint of Nichiren Buddhism, exert means to chant as a bodhisattva of the earth for Kosen Rufu. Do you understand? That's what that sentence just said. That's not about personal benefit. No. That's about being a bodhisattva of the earth. What makes you a bodhisattva of the earth? You've come here to help others. You've sacrificed, you're in the Sahe world only for their benefit, actually. Do you understand? Okay, so from the standpoint of Nichiren Buddhism, exert means to chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo diligently for the happiness of oneself and others. Jigyo Ikeda. So you're now practicing as the Buddha, even though you might consider yourself a bodhisattva of the earth. Because there is a separation between being a bodhisattva of the earth and the Buddha? No, it's just the realization that you're the Buddha. Do you understand? You're already doing all the things that the Buddha does. Right? We can exert ourselves in this fashion only if we possess a brave and vigorous spirit. Because there's going to be times when it's so tough that we won't have a life condition. So at that point in time, it's our faith that provides that life condition. All right? Nichikan, citing Myolo's interpretation of the term exert as meaning pure and continuous, teaches the proper attitude to have in chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. He explains that pure means unalloyed. Now, does everybody know what unalloyed means? You do, because you're a jeweler. Unalloyed is a pure metal, no alloy in it. There's no, pure gold is an unalloyed, material. He explains that pure means unalloyed, unadulterated. There's nothing else contaminating it. And that continuous means to practice continuously and ceaselessly, unceasingly. In other words, the important thing is that we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo each day with sincerity and consistency. Only then, President Ikeda qualifies, only then does it become the practice for polishing our lives and attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime. Because prior to that, what is it? It's a practice for you. And that's not the correct teaching yet, but you haven't gained the wisdom. You're given cut slack to be able to grow into that wisdom. Do you understand? So it's when we make that transition, we go from what? 6 stages of practice, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is where we want to get to. This is about getting to 5. All right? You with me?
Yes.
Only then does it become the practice for polishing our lives and attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime. 5. The Daishonin says, if in a single moment of life we exhaust the pains and trials of millions of kalpas, that's the attainment of Buddhahood in your present form in a single moment of life, you understand, right? then instant after instant, there will arise in us the three Buddha bodies with which we are eternally endowed. In other words, they've always been there, they will always be there. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is such a diligent practice that we can do that just by chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. In chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we are carrying out diligent practice. That is, we are exerting ourselves as the sutra describes. Therefore, are we doing it as the voice hearers and cause awakened ones that are there? Or are we doing it as the Buddha? No, we're doing it as the Buddha, right? Therefore, the three Buddha bodies, the immeasurable wisdom and compassion of the Buddha, manifest in our lives at each moment when we are earnestly concerned for the law. What's that mean? This is always so key. I love the way Daisaku Ikeda writes, and he always slips this stuff in, and I pull it out because I don't want it to slip by you. What is he qualifying there? I'll read it again from the top of that paragraph, bottom of page 44. In chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we are carrying out diligent practice. That is, we are exerting ourselves as the sutra describes. Okay? We are practicing the Lotus Sutra of the modern day. Do you understand? Therefore, the three Buddha bodies, the immeasurable wisdom and compassion of the Buddha, which is what's represented by those three Buddha bodies, manifests in our lives at each moment when we are earnestly concerned for the law and bravely and tenaciously struggle for its sake. What did he just qualify there? This is the important thing, to not think it's just chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. It's more than that. It's how are you chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo? And most importantly, why are you chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo? That's what he just talked about here. What's in your mind? Are you in a 9 worlds mind or are you in a 10th world mind? If you're chanting about Kosen Rufu, then you're in a 10th world mind.
Right.
When you're manifesting our lives at each moment, when we are earnestly concerned for the law, and bravely and tenaciously struggle for its sake. Is that chanting about your own concerns or problems? No. Or benefits? No. Okay, do you understand?
Yes.
Why I'm making that distinction? You must have those thoughts from time to time.
Yes.
About Kosen Rufu, about being the Buddha, about your mission for your life, about growing, about teaching others. Right? They're very fundamental to the overall growth of your life. Because you are still going to have to chant about problems. Don't misunderstand me. This isn't about, okay?
Yes.
All right, so when we have a brave and vigorous spirit of faith, that one of, I'm going to win. I don't care what's happening in the moment. It will not affect me. We instantaneously manifest the life state of the Buddha. Because that's how a Buddha thinks. This is what embracing the Gohonzon is in itself observing one's own mind means. Because we are behaving as the Buddha. We are the Buddha when we do that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Put another way, Nichiren says that those who bravely and vigorously exert themselves in faith are all Buddhas. A life of continuous self-improvement, page 45. Let us remember that the SGI has greatly developed precisely because we have bravely and vigorously exerted ourselves in faith, that is, with true earnestness. Once, when asked by a foreign journalist to explain the reason for our great development, I said, it's because of our wholehearted dedication. The present tremendous progress of Kosen Rufu has come about because we have earnestly and wholeheartedly taken action for the sake of friends, society, and peace. A youth once asked Mr. Makaguchi how one could develop the ability to judge good and evil. He replied, if you have the tenacity and courage to practice the world's foremost religion, you will come to understand. The arrogance of the Lotus Sutra. I love it. He also once said, you must bravely and vigorously exert yourself. You must take action. Even though I am now an old man, I too am practicing in this manner. Exerting oneself bravely and vigorously truly is the wellspring of the Soka Gakkai spirit. When we bravely challenge ourselves through faith, our lives stir. Wisdom is born. Our beings overflow with joy and hope. A person of bravery and vigor who continually, moment by moment, makes causes for self-improvement is an eternal victory because they're constantly advancing. Those who struggle with earnestness and broad-mindedness with the spirit of a lion king are certainly exerting brave and vigorous effort. They are constantly advancing. Shine as a celebrity of the mystic law. As a celebrity of the mystic law. As a celebrity of the mystic law. Page 46. The next line, their names are universally known, means that the names of those who bravely and vigorously exert themselves in their practice will be known far and wide. Whether you're famous amongst regular people or not, you'll be famous amongst the Buddhas of the 10 directions. That's much more important. Because of their brave and vigorous efforts, they win renown. They gain merit. It's referred to in Buddhism, right? Because of their splendid Buddhist practice, they move the hearts of all Buddhas. That's why you start crying just reading about it. Nichiren writes to a follower whose husband was seriously ill, no matter what happens on the road between this life and the next, he should declare himself to be a disciple of Nichiren. My name resounds throughout the pure lands of the 10 directions, and heaven and earth no doubt know it. If your husband declares that he is Nichiren's disciple, I do not think that evil demons of any kind can claim ignorance of my name. You're all disciples of Nichiren. You should all have that exact attitude, because there is no separation between you and him as such. President Toda often told us that when we go to Eagle Peak, we should proudly declare ourselves disciples of Josei Toda, the leader of Kosen Rufu. The names of those who bravely and vigorously dedicate themselves to Kosen Rufu are known to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, and to Brahma and Shakra, and all the heavenly gods and benevolent deities. Their reputation extends throughout the universe. The reason for this, the sutra explains, is that spreading the correct Buddhist teaching in the latter day of the law is the most freaking difficult undertaking. Accordingly, the great achievement of those who actually spread the Lotus Sutra cannot fail to be known to the beings in the worlds of the 10 directions, the entire universe. Therefore, all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and heavenly gods and benevolent deities throughout the 3 existences and the 10 directions, throughout time and space, are sure to protect and encourage, are sure to protect the courageous men and women who propagate the mystic law. In the emergence of the treasure tower, the 11th chapter, Shakyamuni says, this sutra is hard to uphold. If one can uphold it even for a short time, after I have entered extinction, I will surely rejoice, and so will the other Buddhas. A person who can do this wins the admiration of the Buddhas and becomes a Buddha. And Nichiren Daishonin writes, now, no matter what, strive in faith and become known as a votary of the Lotus Sutra and remain my disciple for the rest of your life. And bring forth the great power of faith and be spoken of by all the people of Kamakura, both high and low, or by all the people of Japan as Shijo Kingo of the Lotus School. Nichiren's intent is for each person to shine as a celebrity of the mystic law in their community and in society at large. By making dedicated efforts in faith, we are certain to develop such a reputation. To win for oneself through dedication to the Lotus Sutra is the highest honor. To win a name for oneself through dedication to the Lotus Sutra is the highest honor. The lives of those who struggle for Kosen Rufu, alongside the original Buddha Nichiren Daishonin, bloom eternally with a beautiful fragrance of Buddhahood. They are definitely known to all Buddhas in the 10 directions. That's you. That's you. The SGI's movement and ideals have now spread throughout the world, and as a result, voices far and wide are extolling Buddhism's value. This certainly corroborates the words, their names are universally known. This propagation, which has brought the mystic law to some 115 countries and territories, is unprecedented. It's never happened before in the history of Buddhism. That you, the millions of friends who have emerged from the earth, have accomplished this sacred undertaking. No other individuals or groups have dedicated themselves to spreading Buddhism and elevating the law with such earnestness. Your names and the SGI's name will definitely shine with a golden light in history and resound throughout the universe, reaching the ears of all Buddhas in the 10 directions. This is clear in light of the words, their names are universally known. According to the passage, this is page 48. According to the passage, they have realized the law that is profound and never known before. The mystic law in which we believe is a teaching never known before. When I read these words, I feel as though the dawn were breaking before my eyes. In the past, Shakyamuni served countless Buddhas and carried out an immeasurable number of religious practices. This passage says that as a result of his arduous practice for enlightenment over a period of countless kalpas, he realized the law that is profound and never known before. Immeasurable Meaning Sutra, right? The Chantai explains that Chantai explains that profound means reaching the very foundation of enlightenment, and that never known before indicates that until then no one knew of this law, and the Shakyamuni himself didn't know of it until he attained enlightenment. It was therefore certainly beyond the people of the 9 worlds, including the people of the 2 vehicles and the Bodhisattvas. That's why a little later in Expedient Means, Shakyamuni says, the true aspect of all phenomena can only be understood and shared between Buddhas. The Lotus Sutra reveals the secret teaching for attaining Buddhahood. Bottom of page 48. Hi, baby. Yeah. The Lotus Sutra is the teaching that reveals this law, never known before. This law that can only be understood and shared between Buddhas. The pre-Lotus Sutra teachings were all preached in accordance with the minds of others, that is, according to the capacities of the people of the 9 worlds. For people of the 9 worlds, therefore, the Lotus Sutra is a teaching they have never heard before. Right? Because they're people of the 9 worlds. And in this sense, too, it is a law never known before because it hasn't been revealed yet, even though it's their inherent original state. They don't know that. The correct teacher hasn't yet provided that understanding. The Lotus Sutra reveals to all people, the Lotus Sutra reveals to all people the secret teaching understood and shared only between Buddhas that has never been known before. But a genuine secret teaching is not something kept to oneself, hidden from others, and used to create an aura of mystery or to appropriate authority. That's not what we're talking about here. Okay? When the proper time arrives, a genuine secret teaching should be expounded passionately and spread to all to cure all humankind's ills. Its brilliant force thus proven. That is the purpose of this secret teaching, of this law that is profound and never known before, because the people for whom it is specifically intended have not yet made their advent. That's the only reason it's a secret. And the only teacher that can teach it has not made his advent yet. That's why it's not known until now. Do you understand? So it's not secret as in like, oh, we know something no one else knows. We're so special. We're different. We're unique. That is not what this is saying at all. Everybody is exactly the same is what this is saying. All right? In many of his writings, Nichiren Daishonin refers to the Gohonzon of the 3 great secret laws as a great mandala never before known. He writes, even in the Lotus Sutra, he, Shakyamuni, did not allude to it in the earlier chapters of the theoretical teaching. He began things in the Treasure Tower chapter. He revealed it in the Lifespan chapter, and he brought things to a close in the Supernatural Powers and Entrustment chapters. That cuts off the beginning and the end of the Lotus Sutra right there. In another place he states, now, during the 3 periods following the Buddha's passing, in the 2,000 years of the former and middle days of the law, not even the term object of devotion of the essential teaching yet existed. What did he just refer to there then? How then could the object of devotion have been revealed? There, Tintai, Yolo, and Dingyo never put it into words. I was the first to reveal this great mandala. So what is he talking about? He says, Now, during the 3 periods following the Buddha's passing, in the 2,000 years of the former and the middle day of the law, okay, so this is the 3 periods. I'm now in the latter day. In the former and the middle day, the concept of the object of devotion of the essential teaching didn't even exist. So how could the object of devotion exist? I'm the one that brought about the Gohonzon of the 3 great secret laws. Do you understand what he's saying? Okay, so who could have understood this before me? No one. All right? That's why you didn't see it until me. Right? Now, during the 3 periods, Nichiren Daishonin at the bottom of page 49 bestowed the great teaching known only to Buddhas upon all of the people of the latter day in the form of the object of devotion that has never been known before. Never before been known. Toward that end, he underwent great persecutions. We know what kind of life he lived in order to have the capacity that he was able to create the Gohonzon, to establish it for us. It is important to always remember the immense compassion of the Daishonin revealed in spreading this teaching. That's that sense of appreciation when we chant Daimoku. We should think about it in that. That's why whatever we have to go through, it isn't anything. Compared to what he had to go through to put us in a position to be able to do what we're doing now, it's the least we can do. Right? Yeah. For the same reason, it is important to practice faith based on a profound sense of gratitude and joy. That's what I do mine on. It's based on a specific and a personal relationship with Nichiren Daishonin, with the Gohonzon. Same thing. Do you understand? All right. The law that is profound and never known before manifests in our lives when we have ardent faith in the great mandala never before known. We have great faith in the Gohonzon. Advance with pride. Advance with the pride of the bodhisattvas of the earth. President Toda explained the passage, they have realized the law that is profound and never known before as follows. This refers to the establishment of the Gohonzon of the Buddhism of sowing in Nichiren's own life. I'll say that again because it's pretty damn profound. Think about what he's saying there. They have realized the law that is profound and never known before as follows. This refers to the establishment of the Gohonzon of the Buddhism of sowing in Nichiren Daishonin's own life. So the Gohonzon that he inscribed is a manifestation of the Gohonzon of his life. Do you understand? That's why it's a manifestation of the Gohonzon of your life. It's not separate. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. All right. So the law that is profound and never known before does not exist somewhere else. Mm-hmm. It manifests in the living bodies, the actual lives of us who embrace the Gohonzon. On the treasure tower, Nichiren writes, whether eminent or humble, high or low, those who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo are themselves the treasure tower. They are themselves the Gohonzon, the object of devotion of the essential teaching. And likewise are themselves the thus come one many treasures, and are themselves likewise Buddhas. Do you understand? In other words, we should erect the treasure tower of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo within our lives. That's why the Gohonzon's in front of us, to allow us to do that. Okay? That's the fusion of reality and wisdom. Okay? Pardon me. In other words, we should erect the treasure tower of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo within our lives. This is the spirit that imbues the passage. They have realized the law that is profound and never known before. That's the seeking spirit of the Gohonzon of, what does this really mean? What does this really mean? That's why it doesn't happen in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. It takes a while. It's diligence. Not only Shakyamuni, but all people can awaken to the law that is profound and never known before. All people. It don't have to do 30 years. But it doesn't happen casually. What I really meant by that, it must be based on continuous exertion and a willingness to do exactly what we're reading about here. All people can establish the treasure tower in their lives and shine brilliantly as entities of the treasure tower, shine brilliantly as Buddhas. In time, the earth will teem with countless shining treasure towers of life, countless Buddhas functioning as Buddhas, living as Buddhas in their present form. From the standpoint of Nichiren Buddhism, this will constitute the actual proof of the passage, they have realized the law that is profound and never known before. We are opening a never before known dawn in human history by means of a great never known before mystic law. How cool. Because it is such a teaching, votaries and courageous bodhisattvas of the earth, never known before, must appear in order to spread it. President Toda said, "We are members of the Soka Gakkai family, bodhisattvas of the earth who have emerged from the earth to accomplish the unprecedented, widespread propagation of the law. We have inherited President Toda's spirit and are striving to carry out this practice never known before. Please be confident that in advancing this unprecedented, widespread propagation of the law, we will receive immeasurable and boundless good fortune and blessings, the likes of which we have never which have never been known before, or that we could even imagine are available to us." The SGI puts Nichiren's intention into practice in the passage, and they preach it, the law, in accordance with what is appropriate, yet their intentions are difficult to understand. What a profound thing that passage says. Shakyamuni explains why the door to the wisdom of the Buddhas is difficult to understand and difficult to enter. Shakyamuni indicates that the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings were expounded according to the capacities of the people of the 9 worlds. He also indicates that he has not yet explained his intention in expounding his teaching, and that no one has yet comprehended it. It is no simple matter to directly expound the law that is profound and never known before, which the Buddha has attained as a result of bold practice. That's because the levels of understanding differ so greatly between the Buddha and other beings. Even were the Buddha to expound the true teaching, should the people not fully understand, there would be the danger they would develop doubt, destroy the law, and fall into the 3 evil paths of existence. Shakyamuni, after attaining enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree, at first hesitated to expound the law. He realized, however, that unless he expounded his teaching right then and there, people would be forever locked in the darkness of delusion. Therefore, herein lay the inner conflict of Shakyamuni, who pioneered the way for the enlightenment of all human beings. Overcoming his dilemma, he began to teach the law. Shakyamuni wanted people to gain a correct and unerring understanding of the law. He therefore exercised every ounce of his wisdom, continuously pondering how to convey his enlightenment to as many people as possible. He taxed his ingenuity. Such was Shakyamuni's compassion. Wisdom is born of compassion. He set forth teachings for people of the 3 vehicles according to their various capacities. He expounded the way of the voice hearers, the way of the cause awakened ones, and the way of the bodhisattvas, tailoring each teaching to each group's understanding. He thereby enabled them to arrive at the door of this wisdom of the Buddhas. This was the expedient purpose of the provisional teachings that preceded the Lotus Sutra. In this passage, Shakyamuni says that the Buddhas preach the sutra in accordance with what is appropriate. Former and middle day of the law versus the latter day of the law, right? That is, they expound the law in accordance with what is appropriate to the capacities of the people and what is their karma that's being reflected as to why they're born in that time and those circumstances and those conditions with those capacities. The Buddha's true intention is always to expound the supreme vehicle of Buddhahood, the path for all people to become Buddhas. The voice hearers and cause awakened ones do not understand this, however. Having grown attached to provisional teachings, they fail to understand that the Buddha's true intention is to enable all people without exception to become Buddhas, not just the capable ones, the intellectual ones, the ones with fortune. All right? They do not comprehend the true teaching that makes all people Buddhas, because they still see differences rather than everything is the same. All right? This is the meaning of their true intentions are difficult to understand. Needless to say, the Buddha did not try to make his teachings difficult to understand. Rather, the intention is difficult to understand because his listeners harbor attachments and do not believe the teaching that he is giving them. When people's hearts are closed, they cannot readily accept even sound reasoning. This shows just how fearful is attachment to mistaken ideas. Such attachment can destroy a person's life. In fact, the three powerful enemies persecute the Lotus Sutra's votaries precisely because these enemies remain attached to provisional teachings, failing to understand the heart of the Lotus Sutra. The sutra says, the evil monks of that muddied age, failing to understand the Buddha's expedient means, how he preaches the law in accordance with what is appropriate, will confront us with foul language, right? That's from the 13th chapter, right? Yeah. Those who fail to understand and who distort the Buddha's true intention will persecute those who practice exactly as the Buddha taught. Now, that's Daisaku Ikeda saying that. Why? Because that's what Nichiren taught. That's Nichiren's teaching. And that's also straight from the Lotus Sutra. So I'm going to reread that sentence one more time so we all remember it one more time. Those who fail to understand and who distort the Buddha's true intention will persecute those who practice exactly as the Buddha taught. So if you practice exactly as the Buddha taught, will you be persecuted?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right? And by whom? Those who fail to understand. Not necessarily enemies of the Buddha, but those that have failed to understand what is trying to be conveyed, that you are now trying to convey, and they're critical of you because you have the audacity to think that you're right. Do you understand? All right, that's why President Ikeda said, be brave. Don't worry about what your leader says. Read what I'm saying. Yes. Or I wouldn't write this goddamn book. Those who fail to understand and who distort the Buddha's true intention, will persecute those who practice exactly as the Buddha taught. And in any age, the former will be numerous and the latter few. Speak out for the true teaching. We're in the home stretch. This is it. In a polluted and evil society, those who persecute the votaries of the Lotus Sutra will spread malicious rumors, try to turn public opinion against the votaries, and seek to drive off people of justice. That will happen. Since this is a muddy world of such inverted proprieties, we need to raise the cry of youth and justice persistently. We must win and show proof of the correct teaching. So what did he just say? We must not give up, and we must kick their ass rather than them kick ours. And we do that by showing the proof of actual fact. Do you understand? Yes. We get benefit. We become Buddhas. We teach others. We don't do it just for us. We do it to fulfill the mission that we took the vow to fulfill. Right? We are Buddhas. This is all exactly as the teaching teaches. That's why Daisaku Ikeda is saying what he's saying. In a polluted and evil society, those who persecute the votaries of the Lotus Sutra will spread malicious rumors, try to turn public opinion against the votaries, and seek to drive off people of justice. Since this is a muddied world of such inverted proprieties, we need to raise the cry of truth and justice persistently. We must win and show proof of the correct teaching. After Nichiren died, his correct teaching was protected because Nikko Shonin stood up alone. Had Nikko Shonin remained silent, then no doubt history would have labeled the five senior priests as correct. Five senior priests as correct. Instead, Nikko Shonin strictly refuted their erroneous teachings and founded the Fuji School, which remained the smallest of the five schools until when? The Soka Gakkai. Right? And now, what has created worldwide Kosarufu, that smallest, the offspring of that smallest school. Do you understand? So don't ever look at this moment. That's the teaching of the history of what's already preceded us. Don't look at this moment. You have to have the vision of faith that's being expressed to you.
Yes.
All right? Had Nikko Shonin remained silent, then no doubt history would have labeled the five senior priests as correct. Instead, Nikko Shonin strictly refuted their erroneous teachings. The five senior priests did not understand Nichiren's intention, the true intention of the original Buddha, because they were priests. There was a whole hierarchy, right? They were Nichiren's personal disciples. They were treated like Nichiren by the lay people in their regions, right? The Daishonin's sole intention was to accomplish the widespread propagation of the object of devotion and enable all people of the latter day to become happy, to become Buddhas in their present form. The 5 senior priests lost sight of Nichiren's spirit. Nikko Shonin alone followed and served the Daishonin continually, endured persecution together with him, and boldly propagated his teaching in strict accordance with the mentor's instructions. Because he struggled one in spirit with the mentor, he understood Nichiren's intention. You can tell whether the mentor's spirit has been understood correctly by looking at the disciples' conduct. Whoa! Where do those people get those attitudes? The ones that we're referring to earlier. Incorrect attitudes. Where do people get incorrect attitudes? When you see somebody that I just said, when you saw authoritarianism, that's when I made the comment and everybody smiled, right? Where do they get that mistaken understanding of that lends itself to a sense of authoritarianism? Once again, it's by bad leadership.
Yeah.
Incorrect teachers.
Yeah.
Incorrect teachers breed incorrect disciples with incorrect understanding.
Right.
You can tell whether the mentor's spirit has been understood correctly by looking at the disciples' conduct. No matter how people may claim to uphold Nichiren's Buddhism, if they don't take action for Kosen Rufu for the happiness of all people, then we must conclude that they have lost sight of the Daishonin's intention. 700 years after Nichiren struggled to spread the law amid persecution, when his spirit was almost extinguished, the Soka Gakkai appeared. The Soka Gakkai has directly inherited his true teaching and advances in accord with his will and decree. The Soka Gakkai is directly connected to Nichiren and bases itself on the Gohonzon and Nichiren's writings, and is the only body of harmoniously united believers that correctly passes on what he has intended. In my opinion, I totally agree with that. As glorious verifiers of the correct teaching, let us speak out for Kosen Rufu with lofty pride and dignity and with golden eloquence, not begrudging our voices. I've got a big ha! Okay? So he's saying this to you and to you and to you and to you and to you. He's saying that to each of you personally. As glorious verifiers of the correct teaching. How do you verify it? Become a Buddha in your present form. That's the verification process. It's theoretical until you actually Ichen and Sanzen, right? That's what makes it real. As glorious verifiers, as glorious individuals who achieve Kosen Rufu, as glorious verifiers who achieve Buddhahood in their present form, speak out for Kosen Rufu, okay, for the actualization of the Daishonin's teaching with lofty pride and dignity and with golden eloquence, not begrudging your voice. Don't be afraid to speak up. If we do not harbor doubts in our hearts, we can attain the summit of happiness. President Toda explained the meaning of the line, their intentions are difficult to understand as it applies to our practice. Whereas the Buddha sees what is to come, for us the future is totally dark, and we can only see what has already passed. For this reason, it is difficult for us to awaken to the heart of the Gohonzon. It is enough it is enough that we believe wholeheartedly in the Gohonzon, no matter what. If we do so, then we will definitely receive benefit. It is no good if we start doubting along the way. Did you understand what that just said? I'll read it again. Whereas the Buddha sees what is to come, for us the future is totally dark, and we can see only what is already past. For this reason, it is difficult for us to awaken to the heart of the Gohonzon. It is difficult for us to realize that we're the Buddha exactly as we are, without adding or subtracting anything about what we are in this moment. So he says, in the absence of that understanding, it is enough that we believe wholeheartedly in the Gohonzon, that we utilize faith to be able to achieve that. In the absence of that understanding is Buddhahood. In the absence of that understanding, what do we substitute? And it's the same thing. It's still Buddhahood. Faith. Okay? That's what he's qualifying. It is enough that we believe wholeheartedly in the Gohonzon, no matter what. That is Buddhahood. If we do so, then we will definitely receive benefit. It is no good if we start doubting along the way, because that will diminish our power to achieve what we're trying to accomplish. He is discussing the ultimate meaning of faith. Firm faith in the Gohonzon leads to the highest wisdom. This is the principle of substituting faith for wisdom. Nichiren's intent is to enable all people to become Buddhas. Therefore, it is impossible that those who embrace this Buddhism throughout their lives could fail to realize true happiness. In the course of our practice, however, various things arise on account of the negative causes and tendencies in our own lives. There may be times when we think, what did I do to deserve this? But we should not be swayed every time such phenomena arise, for it is already certain that we will become happy in the end. We should regard everything that happens to us in our practice as training. It sure has been for me. I can't say the things I'm saying to you without all the shit I've gone through. Period. In the absence of it, I wouldn't be able to, and if I couldn't, then I would not want to have not gone through it. Do you understand? You'll have no regrets. If we do so, then later we will see the profound meaning and intention underlying each of these phenomena. It was to bring forth our innate wisdom. That was all. It wasn't to punish us. We're Buddhas. We ask whatever it takes, bring out my innate Buddha wisdom. That's all it is. It's not punishment. As Nichiren writes, if we do not harbor doubts in our hearts, we will, as a matter of course, attain Buddhahood. Those who avoid succumbing to doubts, no matter what happens, are winners in faith. They are people who truly understand the Daishonin's intention. See you next week. Start with page 57. Page 57, chapter 3. Thank you.
Thank you.